The Mandalorians have a storied past and are known as ruthless and skillful bounty hunters. Their story is very complicated, with many Mandalorians blurring the line between good and evil. And their most notable warrior, Boba Fett, certainly lives up to the latter. Let's take a look at the top 10 things you may not know about these Mandalorians. To no one's surprise, Mandalorians come from the planet Mandalore. But what most people do not realize is that the planet has a terrifying history of hundreds of years of war, and as a result of the war destroying their planet, in order to even live on the planet's surface, the people of Mandalore had to survive by building their cities within massive biodomes and cubes. Described as the biodome capital city, Sundari served as a great example of the way Mandalorians had to live. Not only did they see the biodome structures as a reminder of their war-torn past, but the new Mandalorian government tried their best to instill peace and spread their pacifist ways throughout their culture. Unfortunately, the city eventually became victim to Death Watch, who wanted the Mandalorians to embrace their original warrior ways instead of fearing them. Darth Maul also had a major part in shaping Mandalorian history. It wasn't until Darth Maul came into the picture that Pre Vizsla, leader of the Death Watch, was able to successfully take over Mandalore. But Vizsla would ultimately betray Darth Maul in a move he would later regret when Darth Maul would escape imprisonment, challenging him in one-on-one combat for leadership over the Death Watch. And that's exactly what Darth Maul got after he successfully killed Vizsla. This would then result in the birth of what is known as the Mandalorian Super Commandos. The Darksaber, described as a single-bladed lightsaber with a black blade color, has a storied history within the ranks of the Mandalorian army. Originating from the Jedi Order, the Mandalorians, more specifically Clan Vizsla, actually managed to steal the Darksaber from the Jedi Temple way before the Clone Wars era. Pre Vizsla, the leader of the Death Watch, obtained the weapon after his ancestors had passed it down through generations, and he proclaimed that many Jedi had died by its blade when threatening Obi-Wan with it. But the Darksaber was destined to leave the hands of the Mandalorian after Darth Maul killed Vizsla in order to secure his position as Death Watch's leader. However, it wasn't until recently that Mandalorian Sabine Wren, who is a part of the Ghost Crew, was revealed to have ownership of the Darksaber. How she came upon it has yet to be revealed, but we will soon find out. The Mandalorian Code was to be used by warriors to settle disputes through one-on-one combat, and represented Mandalorian's sense of honor by respecting the outcome of the fight no matter what. As you know by now, Darth Maul challenged Pre Vizsla in a one-on-one battle and earned the honor of many of the Mandalorians, but some of them refused to accept Darth Maul due to the fact that he enacted the Mandalorian Code despite the fact that he was not Mandalorian to begin with. This would ultimately lead to a resistance against Darth Maul, escalating the situation even further. Now, Sabine Wren, the Mandalorian crew member of the Ghost, was also challenged by Finn Rau, leader of the Protectors of Concord Dawn, and she used it to her advantage by shooting the weapon out of Rau's hand while destroying his ships at the same time. So in the end, the Mandalorian Code represents both the fierce warrior side of the Mandalorians as well as their honor. Boba Fett is undoubtedly the most popular Mandalorian of all, and he should certainly be proud to earn such a title. His armor shares many of the same qualities as his father's, but has been significantly upgraded to take on his enemies, which is why we will start off with his neck gorget. What it does is it prevents a lightsaber from decapitating him, which is the way his father died during the Clone Wars. And most everyone knows of his blaster, flamethrower and jetpack, as well as his whipcord launcher, but his suit goes far beyond these weapons. For instance, not only does his helmet amplify his senses, allowing him to get the drop on his enemy, but it actually listens to him and allows him to control his weaponry by voice command. It's kind of ironic in a way, especially considering that Boba Fett hardly speaks, but it's quite useful in situations where he may become paralyzed or unable to operate his weaponry any other way besides by using his voice. Phase 1 Clone Trooper armor served as the beating heart of the many designs that followed it clear up to the First Order, and was actually based on Jango Fett's Mandalorian armor. Not only did the Republic decide to use Jango Fett as the genetic template for their clone troopers, but the designers on Kamino actually based their first clone trooper design on his armor as well. You can easily see it when looking at the Phase 1 armor helmet, as it shares the notable T-shaped visor. Of course, throughout the timeline this armor would change, becoming more comfortable for soldiers and enabling them to handle more specialized equipment. But even clear up to the New Order, the armor still shares traits from Jango Fett's armor. If you were high enough in the ranks during the Clone Wars era, you could have been a Mandalorian Royal Guard, tasked with protecting the leader of the new Mandalorians. Wearing armor unique to the role, Mandalorian Royal Guards also carried a weapon just as unique as their armor, the Electro Staff, also known as an Electro Pole. This weapon was so powerful it could block lightsaber strikes, and they were designed specifically to do just that. And if the weapon looks familiar to you, it's because Magna Guard battle droids, the ones that protected General Grievous, also preferred the same weapon. Now, the preferred weapon for most Mandalorians was the Westar 35 blaster pistol and was very popular among the group. It was carried by Pre Vizsla and was even Sabine Wren's weapon of choice as well. The weapon was very low maintenance and, like other blasters, could be set to stun. Cosmetically, the weapon looked very simple, but don't underestimate it just because of its looks. It could deal some serious damage and was capable of killing at will of the user. Boba Fett, however, carried a large blaster, the EE-3 rifle, which could deal heavy damage at medium to long distances with its 3-round burst, and we can't forget about his trusty flamethrower. Boba Fett may be Jango Fett's son, but a lot of people simply do not realize Boba Fett is not Jango's son at all. He is actually Jango's clone. When Jango Fett was offered to become the genetic model for the Clone Trooper army, one of his requests was to receive an unaltered clone that would not be victim of the growth acceleration and behavioral changes that all clones undergo. Even though technically Boba Fett was Jango Fett's clone, he decided to raise him as his own son. You may have seen Sabine's works of graffiti art, but the actual term of this was known as Cubism. Cubism is described as the art movement of the Mandalorians during the Clone Wars era, and the various paintings represented the many battles the Mandalorians had been through in the past. You will notice that the art prominently displayed many different shapes, mostly those with sharp angles and many sides, telling stories of their past. For instance, their capital city of Sundari displayed many different works of art which storied their wars with the Jedi. One such mural depicted a Mandalorian crusader with sword in hand battling the Jedi. And by the time of the Clone Wars, even though the new Mandalorians no longer supported the violent ways of the past, they still decided to display these murals as a reminder of their past. Thanks guys for watching this top 10 facts about Mandalorians, and if you didn't see it, there's an Easter egg in this video. Did you see C-3PO hidden in this video? If so, leave a comment below and let us know where you found C-3PO. Thanks again for watching, and if you have not already, be sure to share it with your friends and hit the subscribe button below. See you next time, and may the Force be with you always.